The detonation. The Sythari fleet hung like black needles against the curve of Earth, silent and still. From this height, the blue planet looked harmless, swirls of white cloud, shimmering seas, and thin ribbons of city light. To Commander Vrelka, it was the image of a world unprepared for what was coming. "Confirm arming sequence," Vrelka ordered, his voice low and deliberate. The command deck of the Vrunketh smelled faintly of ionized air, every console humming with restrained energy. His second officer, Relf, flicked his crest in acknowledgement. "All charges primed, Commander. The pulse bomb will detonate in low orbit as instructed. Earth's primitive satellites will be rendered useless." Vrelka allowed himself a rare smile. "Let them scream into silence. They have hidden behind treaties and lies for decades, but tonight their eyes will close." Through the wide viewport, the bomb floated free of its cradle, a sphere of obsidian, no larger than a cargo pod, drifting slowly into position. Data streamed across Vrelka's display. Altitude perfect, rotation steady, detonation in 90 standard seconds. Down below, the humans were unaware. He imagined their confusion when their navigation arrays blinked to black, when their communications collapsed. No warnings, no defenses. The galaxy had underestimated these primitive bipeds for too long. It was time to cut out the root before it spread. "Final checks," Relf said. "Proceed," Vrelka replied. The sphere shuddered, then flared. A silent flash. White so bright the stars seemed to blink, rippled outward. The shockwave of electromagnetic fury washed through the orbital belt. Tiny sparks danced as satellites ruptured, their casings bursting into shards. Clouds of debris began to scatter, spiraling away from Earth. Cheers rose among the Sythari crew. Relf allowed his crest to rise in triumph. "Orbit cleared, Commander. Hundreds of devices neutralized. Earth is blind." Vrelka watched the wreckage drift, his smile widening. "Mark the time. History begins here." But on the edges of his console, anomalies began to register, faint at first, then insistent. Streams of power surges, not dying signals, but awakening ones. He frowned, leaning closer. "Relf, confirm. Are those residual echoes?" Relfa's talons danced over the interface. "No, Commander. Multiple new signatures. High energy outputs. Origin also low Earth orbit." "That is impossible," Vrelka said. "We cleared the belt." Relf hesitated, crest lowering. "Sir, these are not standard satellites. Their mass readings are far beyond civilian thresholds." On the display, shapes emerged. Large objects once thought to be inert scrap, now rotating with deliberate alignment. Panels unfolded like wings. Sections of shadowed hull shifted, revealing glints of metal and coiled machinery. A chill rippled through the command deck. "Visual now," Vrelka barked. The screen zoomed in. What had looked like shattered debris resolved into enormous dark structures, scarred with age, yet bristling with weapon mounts. Rows of rail-like barrels extended, glowing faintly as systems woke from hibernation. "They were hiding these," Relf whispered. "Commander, they were hiding them among the junk." Alarms blossomed across the fleet's sensors, target locks forming one after another. Dozens, hundreds, a web tightening around the Sythari ships. Vrelka's smile faded. He stood very still, watching the orbital graveyard turn toward them with sudden, predatory intent. In the viewport, Earth remained serene, unaware, or perhaps waiting. Relfa's voice trembled. "Orders, Commander?" For the first time in his long career, Vrelka felt a knot of unease coil beneath his armor plates. His voice was quiet, almost disbelieving. "What in the void have we awakened?" Outside, the massive structures continued to rotate, aligning like watchful eyes, and somewhere deep in their armored shells, ancient human systems came alive, ready to speak and fire. Shadows among the stars. Colonel Arya Navarro stood in the dim light of orbital command, her eyes fixed on the holographic projection of Earth's night side. Dozens of red icons glowed over the equator, foreign vessels. "The Sythari fleet. All units report. she said, her voice steady, though her pulse thundered in her ears. Around her, operators at sunken stations fed her constant updates, the air alive with clipped call signs and data streams. They detonated something in low orbit, her chief analyst replied. Civilian networks are down worldwide. Debris field is spreading fast. Aria's jaw tightened. They had spent decades convincing the world that Earth's orbit was nothing but relics and satellites. But the truth ran far deeper. Beneath layers of camouflage, humanity's second skin had been waiting. She turned to a young lieutenant at her side. Status of ODP units? Rail platforms 1 through 7 are awakening as programmed. Sentinel arrays reporting full power within 5 minutes. Arya exhaled slowly. For years, she had prepared for this moment, though she had hoped it would never come. Hidden among what everyone thought was orbital clutter, the orbital defense platforms, ODPs, had slept. They were old projects from the cold expansion, cannibalized space stations with armored shells and weapons humanity swore didn't exist. Now they were stirring like dragons under a thin crust of ice. Far above, the Sythari fleet shifted nervously in formation. On the Vroonketh, Commander Vrelka paced before the main screen as unknown shapes rotated into alignment. What had appeared as wreckage minutes ago now gleamed with sinister intent. "Report," he snapped. Reltha's crest flicked low, signaling dread. Multiple objects, massive tonnage. Energy readings climbing. They are pointing at us. Vrelka's mind raced. The Sythari prided themselves on intelligence networks that spanned sectors, yet none of those reports hinted at hidden weapons. How long until they are combat ready? Relf swallowed. Sensors indicate they already are. On the screen, faint blue halos shimmered as long, black spears extended from the shadowed platforms. Vrelka knew enough about human ballistics to recognize rail accelerators when he saw them. This planet was supposed to be soft, he muttered, anger edging his words. Primitive. On Orbital Command's deck, Arya clasped her hands behind her back. "Bring Sentinel Black online," she ordered. A low murmur spread among her staff. Sentinel Black was more than a platform. It was a relic from an era when humanity had feared extinction. Officially, it was an abandoned research station, a rusting hulk drifting in high orbit. Unofficially, it held weapons forbidden by every treaty Earth had ever signed. "Colonel," a technician asked carefully, "are you certain?" "They struck first," Arya replied. "We warned every council that Earth might one day need teeth. This is the day." The technician nodded, fingers dancing across holographic keys. Far above, hidden thrusters flared for the first time in decades, rotating a derelict mass so large it eclipsed stars. Plates peeled back, revealing glowing conduits like veins of molten light. Arya watched as the data streamed in. The ODPs were awakening fully now, automated targeting systems locking onto alien signatures. Old Sentry drones stirred, spinning free of their cradles. "Notify world leadership," she said softly. "They wanted to know if we were ready. Tell them we've been ready for 40 years. Back aboard the Vroonketh, Vrelka gripped the edge of his command dais as alarm screamed. "Commander, we are being painted by targeting arrays from 30 vectors," Relf shouted. "How many weapons?" Relf hesitated, then whispered, "More than we can count." Outside, the dark shapes had fully turned, like ancient predators awakening in the void. The Sythari's own tactical overlays painted them in red, each a platform bristling with enough firepower to gut a cruiser. Vrelka's voice dropped to a rasp. "Begin evasive maneuvers. Prepare countermeasures." Relf turned, his crest trembling. "Commander, we may already be too late." The holographic view magnified one of the platforms, a black fortress shedding layers of false debris. Deep within its armored belly, something vast powered up, glowing bright enough to outshine the earth below. In that moment, Vrelka understood the terrible mistake they had made. They had thought Earth was defenseless, but Earth had been waiting. The counterstrike. The first shot came without warning. A silver streak cut across the black, invisible until the moment it struck. The Sythari corvette Hethrol erupted into a blooming cloud of debris, its hull ripped apart by a tungsten rod traveling at Mach 10. A heartbeat later, 3 more rods followed, each one a meteor born from hidden launchers disguised for decades as derelict satellites. On the Vrunketh, Commander Vrelka braced as the shockwaves of distant impacts rattled his vessel's shields. "Status on the Hethrol?" he demanded. Relfa's voice cracked. "No response, Commander. They destroyed it before we could raise alarms." Vrelka's claws dug into the command rail. "This is impossible. Primitive worlds don't carry weapons like these." Another alarm shrieked, dozens of targeting locks flaring on their screens. From behind Earth's shadow, a constellation of shapes surged forth, sleek drone swarms, their hulls black as obsidian, engines pulsing with hidden power. Each drone was small, but they moved with terrifying coordination, weaving through debris fields, closing on the fleet with surgical precision. Down on orbital command, Colonel Arya Navarro stood in the center of the war room, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. Around her, operators reported in rapid succession. Rods 1 through 8 expended. Direct hits confirmed. Drone Wing Alpha reporting contact with enemy screens. Minimal losses. Arya nodded once. "Release Sentinel Black." A hush swept the room. Sentinel Black had remained dormant for decades, its very existence a classified myth. Now on her word it awoke. High above, the derelict mass drifted from the shadow of Earth's night side. Panels the size of football fields unfolded like metallic petals. Turrets emerged, their barrels humming with restrained fury. It had been built from the bones of an abandoned research station, its armored plating scavenged from decommissioned warships. Over the years, it had been dressed in camouflage, burned-out panels, false hull damage, layers of orbital dust, until it was nothing but another ghost in the sky. Now the illusion burned away. Energy surged through conduits, and Sentinel Black's long spine lit with pale blue light. One by one, its weapons extended, magnetic accelerators, missile pods, laser arrays, all trained on the invaders who thought they were alone up here. On the Vrunketh, the crew watched in horrified silence as the station revealed itself. Relf spoke first, his crest flattened in terror. "Commander, that thing is bigger than our carrier." Vrelka swallowed, his composure unraveling. "Focus all fire on it. All ships, concentrate." They unleashed a barrage of plasma torpedoes and beam fire, but the Sentinel's ancient shields flared to life, deflecting the attacks in shimmering ripples. From its forward array, a railgun the length of a city block rotated into place and fired. The projectile, a dense spear of depleted uranium, tore through the void and slammed into a Sythari cruiser. The alien ship fractured in half, its core venting plasma as it tumbled. Meanwhile, the drone swarms closed in. Tiny thrusters flickered as they darted through gaps in enemy formations, attaching magnetic charges to exposed hulls. One by one, Sythari escorts erupted in silent blossoms of light. Relf turned to his commander, eyes wide. "We're losing ships faster than we can regroup. This was a trap." "No," Vrelka growled, though despair crept into his tone. "This was a warning we never heard." Outside, another Sythari ship attempted to break formation and retreat, only to be caught in the crossfire of 3 ODPs working in unison. Their railguns fired in a synchronized salvo, and the fleeing vessel disintegrated into molten shards. On Earth, Arya listened to the reports with grim satisfaction. "Enemy fleet numbers? Down by half, Colonel. They're attempting to flee beyond lunar orbit." Arya shook her head. "They won't get that far. Deploy the hunter-killers." "Yes, ma'am." In the silence that followed, Arya turned to the broad viewport that overlooked Earth from her command bunker. The planet spun serenely below, ignorant of the war raging above. She thought of the decades spent hiding these weapons, the endless arguments with politicians and skeptics who said humanity didn't need teeth. Now those teeth were bared, and the predators who came hunting had discovered the truth. Far above, Vrelka watched another of his ships vanish in a bright flash. The net was tightening. Around them, invisible until now, long-dormant satellites revealed themselves as hunter-killer platforms, each one locking onto fleeing ships, their drives primed for high-speed pursuit. Reltha's voice was a whisper. "Commander, we should never have come here." Vrelka stared out at the planet that had lured them in with its false weakness, and for the first time in his career, he felt something alien to him. Fear. Lessons written in fire. The last Sythari cruiser limped through the wreckage field, engine sputtering. Its hull was scarred and broken, panels venting vapor into the vacuum. Around it, Earth's hidden weapons drifted silently, their cannons still hot, their targeting arrays unwavering. On the bridge of the Vrunketh, Commander Vrelka clung to his station. He could barely hear the officers who remained. Most of his crew were gone, and those left wore the haunted look of soldiers who had seen their future end. "Commander," Relth whispered, crest trembling, "our long-range drives are offline. The hunter-killers, they're surrounding us." Vrelka stared at the planet below, its surface glowing with the distant fires of human cities, peaceful, unaware of the slaughter above. He had believed this world weak. He had believed the galaxy's stories of soft, fragile humans. He had been wrong. A proximity alarm screamed. Vrelka looked up just in time to see a swarm of black drones approach, their engines pulsing like heartbeat beacons. They did not fire. Instead, they surrounded the cruiser in a silent escort, guiding it toward a massive black shape that loomed ahead. Sentinel Black. In orbital command, Colonel Arya Navarro received the latest telemetry with folded arms. "Confirm surrender signals," she said. A comms officer nodded. "Their flagship is transmitting distress and ceasefire codes. The others are gone." Arya allowed herself a breath. The battle was over, but her shoulders did not relax. This was not a victory to celebrate. It was a lesson written in the ashes of war. "Bring them in," she ordered. "We'll hear what they have to say." Her staff exchanged glances, but no one questioned her. Earth's hidden arsenal was still hot, ready to fire again if needed. The Vrunketh drifted closer to Sentinel Black, dwarfed by the ancient station shadow. From this distance, Vrelka could see the scars on its hull, marks of old wars forgotten by the galaxy. Massive doors opened along its side, revealing hangar bays large enough to swallow a cruiser hull. Inside, as they were tractored toward docking clamps, Vrelka saw more human war machines, sleek interceptors, rows of defense drones, missile racks lined like teeth. This was no improvised defense. This was an arsenal that had waited patiently in the dark. Relth leaned closer to his commander. Why would they hide such power? Vrelka's gaze hardened. Because they wanted us to underestimate them. The docking was rough. The surviving Sythari were herded into a chamber that smelled of cold steel and recycled air. A group of armored humans stood waiting, their visors gleaming. In the center, without armor, but with a commander's bearing, stood Colonel Arya Navarro. She studied the alien officers with calm, measured eyes. Her voice carried clearly through the translator systems. "You came here thinking we were weak. You've detonated a weapon in our skies." Vrelka raised his head. His crest drooped in defeat, but pride made his tone steady. "We believed you were vulnerable. The galaxy speaks of Earth as a backwater. We thought your orbit was undefended." Arya's expression didn't change, but her words cut like a blade. "It is not undefended. It is watched. Every piece of debris you ignored was a sentinel waiting for a reason." Relth shifted uncomfortably. "You could have wiped us out without warning. Why capture us?" Arya's gaze flicked to the viewport behind them, where Earth turned in silent majesty. "Because we want you to live long enough to carry a message home." She stepped closer, her voice quiet but sharp as iron. "Tell your leaders what you saw here. Tell them Earth is not a soft world. We are not unarmed, and we will not forgive another attack." Vrelka met her eyes, and for the first time, understood the human's reputation. The stories whispered across distant systems about creatures who could adapt to anything, who could turn ruin into weapons and patience into traps. "We will tell them," he said. "Good," Arya replied, "because next time, there will be no survivors." Later, As the captured Sythari fleet limped away under escort, Arya returned to the observation deck of Sentinel Black. She stood alone, watching the scattered wreckage drift across Earth's orbit like a new ring of fire. Her aide approached quietly. "Colonel, the platforms are asking if they should return to dormant status." Arya's eyes narrowed. "Not yet. Let them see us watching." She placed a hand on the cold glass, looking down at the blue world she had sworn to protect. Above it, Earth's hidden guardians floated silently, their weapons folded but ready, their presence a secret no longer. "Let the galaxy remember," she murmured. "Our orbit is not just clutter.